Hello, everyone. This is Larry Lewis again on the Mentors Lounge. Today, I bring to you a leadership expert, leadership consultant and minister in the marketplace, someone I reverend very much, and I have brought him here today to share some deep insight with us. The person I'm talking about is Reverend Niyi Ladokun. He is someone that is so phenomenal. And I'm sure everyone here today will be able to enjoy this interview session. Without further ado, I want to call on Reverend Niyi Ladokun. Welcome to Mentors Lounge today, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be able to join you in this lounge, virtual lounge as it is, and be able to contribute my own thoughts, to building the capacity for leadership and mentorship in the sphere of what you do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, sir, for that short introduction. Now, Mentors Lounge is set up to democratize success, that is, to make succeeding normal. And you're able to, you can succeed faster when you learn from those who have gone ahead. So the first question I'll be asking you today is this. Can you tell us a brief about your career, your growing up? What shaped you to become the person you are known for today? Let's have a brief into that, sir.
Okay, thank you. I think that a man is made up of the sum of his experiences, and his encounters. There are things that happen to you and happen in you that when they are taking place, you don't put them into context. They don't seem to make sense. But after a while, they begin to make sense. After a while, you begin to understand them. After a while, you begin to gain perspective of them. So I grew up being a child that loved knowledge. I love books, and I usually tell people the greatest investment my dad ever made was investing in books, so I had books all around me. Of course, I was on social media, TV would open at 4 p.m. and would close at 10 p.m. So there was no distraction from that. I was lost in the world of books. I was lost in the world of science. I had this appeal for science, So knowledge was my stock in trade, From as far back as when I was in primary 4, I remember gathering my colleagues together and regaling them with stories. I fabricate stories from the books I've read. So I read a book on deep sea exploration, for example, and then I came and told them, hey, I have an uncle who's a deep sea explorer. I would tell all those kind of stories, from that time. And what I find most interesting now is that they would listen to me. Sometimes we're talking 45 minutes, 1 hour, sometimes we didn't break, sometimes a teacher didn't show up, I was in a public primary school, of course, and they were still very good in those days, And so it was interesting that these guys would sit and listen all through. Some of them knew I was fabricating the story, but the stories were too exciting, for them to not listen, So that was the beginning for me. And so there was a whole lot of content being built into me, By the time I was in secondary school, I started being put in leadership position, being called to do this, being called to do that. And so I started off realizing that everywhere where I was always called to lead. I was always called to resource, And that continued all the way through to university. When I was in university, I studied physics. Single honors from the University of Ibadan. And interestingly, in my set, I realized I was the only one who actually wanted to study physics. Everybody else would go elsewhere, and they ended up there. I wanted it. There was this love for science, and my dream was to be a professor of theoretical physics, That was the dream, and until God caught up with me, But the leadership thing kept on coming on. Platforms were being created. I got born again, met Jesus, and decided, hey, my life had to take on a whole new trajectory. There has to be something different about my life. And so as I began to grow in faith, I began to be given responsibility in leadership within the youth fellowship, within the student fellowship. There was just something everywhere I was going that everyone was recognizing. So was that foundation of knowledge and love for knowledge. So when it came to the word of God, yes, I will take the word at its face value, but I will interrogate scripture. I will dig deep. I found myself buying Bibles and materials to understand the word. But I always discovered that every time I was teaching the word, or every time I was instructing, every time I was even studying, I had a bias towards leadership development. I always had a bias towards how does this apply to building a new generation of leadership? How does this apply to reinforcing the leadership spirit that is already in play in people and all of that? So I found myself leaning towards that. So when ministry started calling, leadership also started calling. And at some point I was thinking, okay, probably I would even be able to get to dabble in politics, So I started at my departmental level, the university, and I was gunning for SUG, and somehow God didn't allow me to do that. So basically that was the thing. And by the time I was out of school, the call of God had dawned upon me, But the thing was, I did not want to do ministry the normal way. In fact, my first pastorate was basically a Bible school. I mean, at every opportunity, I was running trainings, teaching people, several trainings upon trainings. When I went to youth service, I started a Bible school during my youth service, and I was training people. I mean, even people with Catholic background, I was teaching them the Word of God, going in depth. I mean, I could teach. As I taught them straight for 6 hours, no break. I was just consumed with wanting people to be grounded, So I couldn't do church as usual. I mean, I wasn't that person that would do church as usual. Yes, there is a pastoral equipping as part of your gifting, but you know that what you have within you is beyond just leading the flock, leading a congregation. There was something about a generation. There was something about affecting a dispensation, a dispensation of people, So that has colored everything I've done. And so after several years of pastoring, moving between pastorates, I finally transitioned into this leadership development thing. I came into Nairobi to work with an organization, that was focused on leadership development. And I found so much joy in it. I found so much it was like, yes, I got it. I hit my place. So I am more comfortable among leaders, and I'm more comfortable sitting with the leader one-on-one to work them through issues. Yes, I enjoy preaching and teaching, which I still do, and I enjoy it greatly. But my greatest moments are when I sit across a leader and I'm able to help him understand why he exists and how he can navigate the issues he's dealing with in his, either in his leadership or in his personhood, And so in a brief sense, I know I've straddled the whole of the thoughts you had in mind, but that is how I found myself and I evolved, as a leadership person. And of course, along the line, several conferences, several seminars, several encounters with leaders that I've been able to benefit from have helped to shape me to who I am.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that background. Now we are seeing someone who has built leadership capacity over the years across different platforms, across different people. Now, one of the challenges that is prominent in Africa is the leadership problem. Because if you are able to envision something able to lead, then you can batch so many things. If you are to be called consulted as a resource person to advise African leaders, especially with the way the world is transforming now. What will be maybe 3 or 5 things that you would tell them to do, especially to maximize the core human capital, which is the youth? It is known and it has been established that the youngest continent is Africa, because you have close to 70% of the population being young youths. So what the challenge that I see here is this: do we have leaders who know how to maximize the youths to deliver or to create an economy or to create a nation that actually works? Because if you have the bulk of your population or the bulk of your team, because the way it is, like you relate more with CEOs. I always like to look at it from this point of view, that a nation, an organization, is just a company. The CEO is the president or the prime minister. The team members are the ministers. In this case, you have youths who have different potential, different capacities. How do you create an ecosystem that works with this amount of people? What will you say to all this?
Thank you. You have asked a very, very good question. What would I say to African leaders? The first thing I would say to them is to look within. We must craft African solutions to African problems. Thank God for the East and the West who have showed interest in our resources. What they come for is our resource, whether it's material, rare earth metals, or petroleum, or whether it's our people, our best minds. That is what they come for. They are not interested in us, they're interested in themselves, and we are an end to that. So if we are going to find solutions, it will not be from the West or from the East, it will be from within Africa itself. Within. Africa is well resourced. We have the human capacity, we have the potentials, and we need to take our narrative from just talking about potentials in Africa to actually deploying potentials, okay? So that would be my first thing. So craft a vision for Africa that involves African solutions. Craft a vision for your people that looks at how we can use the platforms that have already been created by the East and the West, okay, the advancements in technology, how we can harness them for our own good. Because whatever it is they're coming to get from us, they are using it for their own. We must also be able to use what we have for our own, and our minds, our greatest resource. We are smart people, we are capable intellectuals, but we need to be brought together around the table. One of the things that the colonialists did that damaged, the colonialists used a divide and rule approach. They made us to stop believing in brotherhood, you know. So it started between clans and ethnic groups, and then it now migrated, as it were, into nations. So every nation in Africa is protective of its territory, you know. For about 2 years now, the African Free Trade Agreement has been enforced, but nations have not embraced it fully. 2018, they started the African passport, but only certain individuals have it because nations are still being protective of their markets, of their people. We need to remove the barriers to trade, the barriers to integration, the barriers to cooperation as a continent. We need to see business reaching beyond borders, leadership being able to cross borders and add value where it is needed. You know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to be brothers. You know, we have to stand together and fight the common enemy. We are not our enemies. You know, we have a common enemy who works to divide us. I'm telling you, everywhere presently where there is conflict in Africa is because of resources. and it's because of vested interest. Various nations invested in them, and the conflict allows them to continue the exploitation of these minerals and resources without regulation.
Yeah.
Once the conflict is out, there will be regulation in place. So everywhere you see conflict in Africa, it has to do with material resources, you know, which if we begin to look inward as a people and begin to think of how to unite, we will be able to deal with all these things. I mean, it is easier for us. This is so sad. It is easier for you as a CEO in Africa to do business with the Chinese or with the Europeans or with the Americans than to do business across border within Africa. Intra-Africa travel is very expensive. It is cheaper to go to Europe and to go to Asia from Africa than to move within Africa. We need to break down all those things. So I would tell African leaders, let you as a leader become the sheep, become the humble one, okay? And let others shine so that we can all come to a place of unity. But as long as some of us are trying to be the goats, we're trying to pull off, oh, I'm representing my people, I'm protecting our interests. At the end of the day, we keep on being exploited because we don't have a united voice. You know, we're talking of 1 billion people. You know, we're talking of a very, very large continent. I mean, China and India are the only nations larger than us in terms of population. You know, but they don't have, as well resourced as those nations are, they don't have what we have. The creativity that is in Africa is huge. You know, it's totally amazing that the rest of the world feasts on us. You know, in terms of deriving from our creativity, in terms of deriving from our resource and everything. You know, our best minds work for some of the best institutions, best multinational and global institutions. So the question is, why can't we create structures here to make it work? So that'll be the first thing, create a vision, look within. I mean, the first two things. The third thing will be invest in infrastructure. Okay, infrastructure is critical. And I know sometimes the populace can be impatient, but we can't do everything at once.
Yeah.
Can we focus on one thing at a time? If we say for 5 years, we focus on roads, and then we move on and focus on power. There is a way, the way the infrastructure equilibrium works, when you deal with one end, it actually has an effect on easing the other end. You know, in Nigeria, for example, I have this as a theory that if you deal with road and water, I mean, we know power is an issue. Let's leave power. You deal with road and you deal with water, a whole lot of things will become easier for people. Trade will be easier automatically. In fact, the demand for power will not be as great anymore because people can move from point A to point B with ease. They can access potable water with ease. You know, there is the way it affects how even the demand for power will into ease. It affects how things work out. And then eventually you can say, okay, I'm done with 1, I'm done with 2, I can move to 3. I know there are some who believe in this approach of let's face 5 things at once. So we have 4-point agenda in one country, 5-point agenda in another country, 7-point agenda in another country. In fact, some countries have 13-point agendas all over. Can we choose one agenda, and can each successive administration build on what the last has done? And not see the need to reinvent the wheel, the need to start again. You know, that mentality, I mean, in the corporate world, it doesn't work like that. I don't know why politicians think that's how to build a country. Yeah. In the corporate world, you must build on what your predecessor has done. You know, each board that comes in must build on the strength of the former board. You know, you don't come in and start everything and it's going to break up. You will lose the market. Your stakeholders, your investors will lose trust in you. You know, so if it doesn't work in the corporate sector, why do we think we can make it work in nation building and the national life? So those would be the first few things, you know, that I would say. Build bridges across, look within, see ourselves as brothers, and then invest in infrastructure. Infrastructure will make a huge difference in Africa's development.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those wonderful charge to our leaders, because until that is done, then success that we're talking about in the space of Africa may be a mirage. Now, I want to zoom in a bit deeper now. I want to zoom in a bit deeper with some questions. In this leadership trajectory that you have followed, both within the corporate world and in the ministerial, because this particular month of December, I'm dedicating it to ministers in the marketplace, people who have expressions beyond the pulpit, right? And that is what I believe should be the case. God did not create us to be within a particular place. We must have influence and be able to make positive impact to the outside world. That is how we can show his glory anyway. So if you're a minister, you have to be able to be someone that is actually making positive impact in the marketplace. So the question I want to ask with that regard is, what are some of the hard choices, right, that you made to get to where you are in your career or in your ministry today? What are the hard choices? Because there must be some.
Yeah.
There must be some. And the reason why I'm asking that question is because for those who are watching this, they need to understand that you don't just see someone manifesting and it's like this, right? That person took some hard choices that are not palatable. What are some of those ones that you took that will help people to understand this thing in the background? Yeah.
Thank you. That's a hard one. You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare anyone, but you will not make a mark without consecration. And consecration will mean you say no to comfort. Okay? There are some of us that we know we could do so well in so many fields, in so many dimensions, but we have to consecrate ourselves to the voice. It is critical. When you look at Daniel was not just the leader that he was because of his competence, but because of his consecration. So he was competent, he had the skill, and he was trained. I mean, he was naturally gifted. You know, when you look at Daniel chapter 1, verse 4, he was naturally gifted, you know, but he was also trained. So the way through a process of training himself and his colleagues. But what really stood him out was his consecration to God. What ensured that when the other guys did not have access to interpret what Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt, I mean, the man refused to tell them the dream. He said, you find the dream, and then tell me the dream, and then tell me the interpretation. I mean, and all the guys who were trained like them, who have the same level of competence, like you said, this thing has never been demanded because it is not something that is commonplace. It's never happened before. You know, but what gave Daniel the answer was his consecration. You know, and several years later, when under Darius the king, they tried to take that from him. He held on to it. You know, his colleagues also they were tempted. They said, "Hey, you bow down." He said, "No, we won't bow down, king. I mean, we are not careful to us." So that was a measure of consecration. You will have to turn your back on the crowd. You will have to know that there are some things the crowd will say it is okay to do, but you will not be able to do. There are some things Dr. Lewis will be able to do, I will not be able to do. There are some things that will not necessarily be bad, but for me it is not. So Paul said, all things are profitable, but not all things are experienced. I will not be brought under the power of anything. So there are things that will seem good to do, but your consecration will demand that you say no to them. You would have access to an easy life, but you'll have to walk away from an easy life, you know? So we've had this move, you know, taking people out of Africa, for example, to Canada, to US, to UK, you know, and all of that. And many people are going because people are going. And it's okay. I'm one of those who believe that we need to preserve our best minds. And sometimes you have to get them into the diaspora to preserve them. You know, Bible says, out of Egypt I've called my son. So it took him out to preserve him, you know, and there'll be a return eventually to build, you know. But you can't just go because people are going. You go because you are sent. You must go with the mentality of God wants me here. Otherwise, you will be there, others will be flourishing, and you'll be suffering. You'll be struggling, wondering, why is this happening? So consecration is critical. There will be decisions you have to make that will be painful. Painful decisions. So God said to Abraham, he said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, you know, and go sacrifice him. And God didn't say do it in 3 hours. God says, go to one of the mountains of Moriah that I will show you. So he was to do a journey. Okay, and this journey took 3 days. 3 days. And so you can imagine each step was excruciating. Each step he was dying each step, you know, as it were. And then the 3rd day, as he was looking at the place, and God was saying, that is the place I'm sending you. And it was still afar off. The boy said, Dad, come. We have the wood, we have the fire, but where is the sacrifice? I mean, imagine that moment for Abraham. And he had to speak in a way to reinforce his son and say, God will provide himself a lamb for the sacrifice. You know, so this is it. I mean, there are several things I've had to do. You know, but I'm this kind of person. When God says, get up, I get up. When he says, go, I go. Sometimes going is tough. Sometimes going is difficult. Sometimes it means loneliness, you know. Sometimes it means nights of no sleep. Sometimes it means being away from my family for a while, you know. And that is a hard decision for me, because at my core I am so into my family, you know, and I have to make these decisions several times. He says to go, I go, you know. There are certain relations I'm like, oh no, I love this person, I want to interact with this person, I want to relate to this person, and he says no. And it's tough, and to some people you look like a snob, you know. And I mean, there's like a clique of people doing what you do, and you want to be part of them, and he says no, you know. And those are hard choices that you have to make, you know. I remember hearing Dr. Tume Bakari say several years ago, he said the path of destiny is a lonely path, you know. And that touched me and will define my pursuits. You will not always find several people going or doing this journey with you. You will have to make hard decisions. And when God gives you these decisions, I mean these instructions, He doesn't send a memo to everybody concerned and say, hey, I've spoken to him. So when he says it, just say yes to him. People are going to think you're crazy. Even sometimes your mentors and spiritual leaders will think you're crazy. And so the vision, the instruction will have to be tested. And of course, wisdom is justified of our children. And at the end of the day, you are the one who have to go through all that pain of proof. You know, until everybody say, it was God that told him after all. But that statement will have come probably sometimes after 5 years, sometimes after 7 years, sometimes after some deep crucifixion that I've had to go through. You know, so and it's the same even for a leader in the marketplace. You know, whether faith-based leader or not, you know, everybody has to pay a price. You know, at each point, at each level, and it will not always make sense. You know, Paul at some point described apostles as the offscoring of all things. He said, of all men we are despised. We are the busiest of all men, you know, as it were, because of the sacrifices that had to be made, you know. And so I don't want to scare our audience today.
Because
but if God is going to greatly, He will have to hurt you deeply. So I didn't hear that.
It's better you share some of them, because that is the main aim of this thing. It's better you share some of them. It's not about scaring anybody. It's about telling them the hard truth. This thing is this. It's very, very important so that people know this is the part. When you are going through this is what you are going to go through. So that's why I asked that question. I want you to give, even if it is one, just drop one of those hard ones that you took.
Okay, so you see, I'm an ultra-conservative, so I try not to talk about some of these things. But I mean, if I pick a recent one, I had an opportunity to go west, move west, settle my family, live a better life, live the good life. But the more I prayed about it, the more I felt, no, this isn't it. I mean, I actually traveled out there, and my soul will just not rest. I mean, I was crazy to everyone I talked to about it, like, what is wrong with you? I mean, but my heart kept pulling me back, and I came back, and I'm here doing the will of God. The things that I heard of me, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have this confidence of faith. Saying yes to saying no to an open door, and now standing before a closed door and shouting it down. I mean, who does that? So, those are some of the sacrifices you might have to make on your journey. Okay. I've had to embrace responsibilities without remuneration. Just because I know that is what God wants me to do. Now, it didn't make sense because the bills are there. I mean, whichever way you look at it, the bills will always be piling up. The moment you become an adult, you will have responsibilities, calling for you from every point. But I've learned to trust God with the process. I've learned to trust God with it. I've learned that the God of the 1 million is God of the 10 million. The God who supplies food for the cattle on 1,000 hills is the one who gives you all the cattle you need. The one who clothes the dove, and the sparrows is the one who provides you with the latest designers wear. I mean, it's the same God, and I've learned to trust Him for each step of the journey. So. Yeah, I mean, several things I could share. The time when things seemed to just be doing so well, and I had to put my family and move them into uncertainty, But the amazing thing was we paid the price and God blessed us, But it was tough. That I can tell you, it was tough. It was tough.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, after that one, still digging deep, because this is a very, very important session for me. Now, have you ever experienced some major setbacks in career, business, ministry? And if you did,
you can tick yes for all of them.
How did you bounce back? How did you bounce back?
How did I bounce back?
This is something that is very, very important. People hit a brick wall and they're like, and they don't get back. But we need to share how to bounce back, because life happens at times. You may take a decision and it does not go the way you want it, but how do you bounce back? What are those setbacks, and how did you bounce back?
Okay, so there'll be several of them. If you walk with God long enough, you will encounter a lot of troubles. If you are anointed, you will attract troubles. I have had experiences where people that I reached out to, loved on, just spurned my love for no apparent reason. People that I invested in turning their backs, and it was very painful. When you've been trained in leadership, it's very painful. When you've invested in people and they turn to stab you in the back, you can almost lose it. And then when you've invested your life in a cause, and at some point everything just come crashing down. People you felt should stand up for you now become your chief enemies. So we've had all of these things, you know, at different points in time. But I think the most recent for me was having to walk away from something I'd invested my life in. And because I was just in a period of pain, and I said to myself, perhaps this isn't it anymore. Perhaps this isn't what God wants me to do anymore. And I just walked away, you know, and I walked away not knowing what was ahead. I mean, I just left it, you know. This is something I'd consecrated my life to, you know, and I just left it, and I said, I'm just going away. And so I entered a season of not even wanting to talk to anybody, you know.
Wow.
People come and say, hey, so what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. Yes, I still had responsibilities all over the place, but you know, sometimes you tend to define yourself by a certain thing. You do so many things, but there is a certain things a certain thing you tend to define yourself with, you know. And when you have that thing taken from you, you suddenly get the point of feeling, so why am I even existing? Do I even have value? And I mean, you read Ezekiel, you read Jeremiah, those guys had very low moments. Yeah. And a very sincere prophet. Some people felt that Ezekiel must have been schizophrenic, you know, because of some of, you know, the experiences and his expressions that he had. And Jeremiah, I mean, he was almost bipolar. I mean, these guys had swings, you know, in moods and some expressions, you know, like that. And when you're a real leader, you will have real issues. You will have real problems. And but I'll tell you something. Through it all, there were two stabilizing factors for me.
Okay.
One was my wife. So if you want to live long, find yourself a good spouse. The journey of life involves you having someone who can bear you up, who can carry you. So male or female, find yourself a good spouse, you know, who can lock it down for you. The second thing is my mentor, spiritual father, you know. He held it down for me. He would listen to me. He would guide me. I mean, sometimes I'm just ranting about the same thing, and it is what it is. And sometimes you just go on. I mean, you spend months on the same issue, sometimes years on the same issue, but there's someone who believes in you so much that every time you come, they give you a shoulder to lean on, and they give you counsel to keep going. I believe in the power of counsel. I believe that my greatest gift is counsel. It's not prophecy. I operate in the prophetic, but my greatest gift is counsel, being able to guide people through situation in a very intimate way, being able to help them decide between right or left, you know, between two or three, you know, like that, you know. And so that's one of the greatest blessing of access to a mentor that I've received, you know. And that's, apart from what I would call the third, having friends around you who understand the mind of God, who understand the things of the Spirit, you know, because sometimes when you operate in this corporate environment, you know, this new apostolic business environment that we have, everybody's so driven by success, driven by achievements, everybody wants to do, you know, that nobody pauses anymore to say, this thing I'm pursuing, what does God think about it? You know, so having friends who can hold you accountable to God's plan for your life is very critical. People who will listen to you and will not try to fix you, but will pray with you. You know, people, when they say, hey, you know, I'm going to pray with you, actually know they're going to pray with you. You know, so I have about 3 of such friends, you know, spread across, you know, 3 continents, and I make it a point of duty to make sure I engage. I mean, it's our relationship is reciprocal, you know, but it's intentional. We're intentionally involved in each other's lives, you know, and we can lock it down, talk about anything. I say anything, you know, because sometimes what is distracting a CEO might not be the bottom line. What is distracting might be one of his sons, or I mean, one of his children behaving or misbehaving, or a statement his wife makes repeatedly. I mean, sometimes it's the whole front. Sometimes it's something in the community, something we read in the newspaper. It has nothing to do with business that is troubling him. And so having someone who's able to help you find the square roots of things, you know. So if you look at it all, what I've said, the three things boil down to relationship. Relationship. Having the right relationships in your life, it will help you to get through that season. So I came out of my season, and I'm able to look ahead, you know, happy, joyful, glad that I don't just know in my head, I have certainty in my heart about all that is ahead.
Awesome. This is really, really critical. The power of relationships. I, for one, I mean, most of the people I know, we've been together for 25, 30 years plus 35. And, you know, there is this saying that says that it's not the company that you have when you get to the top or when you get to the main stage that really matter. It is those ones that have been there right from the beginning and you have kept in touch with them. Because they always say that your network is your net worth. Who are your friends? Who are the people that hold you up? Who are the people that have your ears and you have their ears also? And I mean, thank you for those three things. Your spouse is very, very important. They can make you or mar you, right? Especially for the man.
Yeah.
If the man does not have peace at home, you can be sure that man is going to be in disarray. And also having very close mentors, I could pick that, and also having close friends that will actually walk it with you and you come back. Thank you so much for those very insightful experience that you share with us. Now, maybe two more questions, just two, and I'll be able to release you this day. Now, you know, we're in an evolving world now that is driven by technology, from social media to Web 2.0. Now we have Web 3.0, which is metaverse. Everything is now online. What are some of the tips that you can give for anyone, right, to leverage on the technology world that we have today to network online? Because everything is now driven by online meeting, Zoom meeting, Teams meeting. Now we are talking of metaverse. Where you will now be able to relate with people almost like you are seeing them where they are, right? There is a whole lot of things coming up in that space. So that is where we are going. So what are some of the things that you can give? And this question is very relevant today as companies are embracing working from home. So how do we now still maintain to be able to leverage? Like, for example, if I were to wait to meet in person all the people that I have interviewed on Mentors Lounge to date, I'll wait for a long time, right? Yeah. But when I got the vision to start the Mentors Lounge, I asked myself, what do I need to do? I registered, bought the paid license for Zoom and got my team in. And now I have all this leveraging on technology. What tips can you give, especially for the younger people, towards manifesting what their giftings are? Because the world is now a global village. How do you maximize the fact that you are in one place, one corner in Africa, or one corner in Asia, or one corner in the US, to amplify your gifting to the whole world using networking? How do we? So this is the question I want to ask you, sir.
Thank you. So, yeah, some years ago, some people began to say, you know what, you need to own a piece of real estate. The world is big and all that, but to own a piece of real estate, okay? So I want to say to you, you need to own a piece of the metaverse. You need to own a piece of cyberspace. You need to create your own unique identity and create a space for yourself. Anyone today that is hidden, they are hidden by choice. Because we're in a world where you can be in touch with anywhere at any point at any time, you know. There are some people who see this whole evolution of cyberspace, you know, of the web, into the metaverse, you know, as distraction. I don't think so. I think it's an opportunity, okay? But every opportunity will always create its own crisis or its own challenge, you know. There'll be threats to it, you know. And one of the threats that I see in this evolving opportunity is that we can lose privacy, okay? We can lose our personal space. It is important that you define for yourself a personal space and maintain it. If you're not careful, many of us already, the moment we wake up, the first thing we reach for is our mobile devices, and it's the last thing we drop at night, and they're affecting the quality of our sleep, which is creating a whole lot of mental health issues for us, you know. So my encouragement is own a piece of cyberspace, okay, the metaverse, whatever you're going to call it, own a piece of it, create your own online identity, create a niche for yourself to express yourself, your uniqueness, your unique gifting, but also protect your offline life, okay? Have the life offline. That time where you spend with yourself, with nature, with people, physically. One of the greatest things we've learned from this pandemic period, need to be in touch with it. So it is important that everybody has a life outside of this cyberspace, you know. We need to, the way human beings are designed, we need to be in touch with one another. We need the element of touch. Now, the metaverse is trying to create it. It's trying to mimic it, but it's never going to be the same thing. When I'm in your presence, there is something I feel, you know, from the aura of your presence that I cannot feel, no matter how, even if it's an hologram in front of you, that is not there, you know. There are those hormones that, that are released, those endorphins they call it, and some of those things are released when we are present, that changes the pheromones, that changes our atmosphere, and we're designed to need that. We are designed to be in that space, you know, as people, as humans, you know. So there is such a huge opportunity, and everybody should own their space, but don't lose your life outside it, you know. I know a whole generation of young people think that is the future. I don't need anybody. I'll be fine by myself. The pandemic taught us we're not fine by ourselves. It taught us we need other people to be sane, you know. Some people were in places where they couldn't even go out. They were locked in for months. The delivery man that would bring things could not even come close. They couldn't even say hi to themselves. That person has to drop something. They had to go out and sanitize that thing before they brought it in. It was crazy for many people, you know, and it almost turned many people mad. But I was still reading something this morning that says, it was a UK report that said that about 200,000 cases of PTSD are set to arise out of the pandemic, you know. That because a lot of people are still, it was very traumatic for many people, you know. So I'm saying there are opportunities in this. By the grace of God, I'm in Nairobi, you're in the UK, and we can communicate like we are together. That is huge, you know. And I'm saying to young people, you're doing business, package it well enough, because you are no longer local. We've gone beyond local. Okay. Anytime you get on this metaverse, anybody can reach you from any corner of the globe. You have to be reachable. You have to position yourself to do business without walls. Okay. In fact, I tell speakers, when you speak, enunciate your words well. Accents. Everybody has an accent. English speaks with a kind of accent depending where they're coming from. You know, everybody has an accent, but say the words well into the world. Okay? When you get out of this space, you are not just addressing people in your locality. You are speaking to whomsoever. You know, we used to have this kind of document say to whoever is concerned or something like that. You know. So to whom may concern, thank you. So when you get on the internet, you are speaking to whom it may concern. Make sure you make your words clear, you articulate clearly. If you're selling a product, make sure that it's a way that product can reach anywhere there is a demand for it. Put more effort into your packaging, you know, both the packaging of the product and of you, the primary salesperson for the product. Awesome.
The last question I'm asking you today, just 4 more questions for you, and that'll be it for today, Reverend Lad. So the question is, do you have a template that you use for long range visioning and strategic planning, especially knowing that you are a leadership consultant? Do you have a template that you use for long-range visioning and strategic planning? That is one skill every leader or anybody that aspires to lead or achieve something needs to know how to do. That's the last question for you, sir.
I would say yes and no. Yes, because I do have something that I've used that works for me and I use with all the people that I work with. No, because it is not publicly available, you know. But I definitely have a template for visioning. And basically, the first thing is finding, should I say, an alignment between your purpose and your pursuits. That for me is the first thing. So when I say to the leader, who says, I want to do so, I'm like, okay, wait. There has to be an alignment between your why and your what, you know? And the why is first a personal why. Why do you exist? And then for what do you exist, you know? What are you pursuing, you know? Because from my experience, what I've seen is that most leaders just follow a textbook template. Do this, or Maxwell said to do it like this, and I read this other guy said to do it like this, and that is it for them. Without finding out, is there an alignment between who I am and what I'm pursuing? Between why God placed me here and what I'm trying to achieve with my life, you know? And I'm not, when I speak of alignment, I'm not talking about necessarily a linear alignment. Sometimes these things are not straight lined like that. For some people, it's a multiplicity of things, you know? One person, but they have multiple capacity, but you would find everything aligning at the end of the day. You know, there'll be alignment between your purpose, your potentials, and your pursuits, your gift mix, you know. And I mean, I see people today, they hear there is a new training in town, a new certification, they're off to get it. Without asking themselves, does this actually align? You know, but it sounds good to say, there's this training Dr. Lewis is running, I did it. There's this training MOB is running, I did it. They don't wait to ask themselves, hey, where is this taking me?
Is there a connection?
So there are so many leaders that are just spent. Okay, they are spent. In the eyes of the world, they are successful, but internally they're empty because there is no alignment. Because when that alignment is not there, there'll be no sense of fulfillment. There'll be no sense of joy. You know, you are having achievements, but you are not fulfilled. So yes, the template is very simple for me. Is first driving it down to purpose. You know, and basically to find your purpose, we basically answer some questions together. You know, what are the things that have been said about you? What are the things that you find easy to do? What are the things that have pained you and that cause you pain now? What are the things that have pleasured you and that you find pleasure in? You know, now, you know, what are the things you feel drawn to, you feel attracted to? What are the promises and the prophecies spoken over you? The people you look up to that you have access to, what have they said about your capabilities? You know, so we align those things. You know, it helps us to come to a place of say, oh, this is it. Then we now look at what are the things, what are the abilities and the competencies you have acquired? Which of them did you find easy to acquire? Which of them were tough, but you just find it inspiring, you know? And which of them have you mastered to a certain point right now? So we look at that, you know? And that helps us to come to a place of defining what your potentials are. So when it comes to your pursuit, there are two dimensions we look at it. That the natural order of things, okay, if you have this kind of interest and this kind of gift mix, then you should pursue this. So we narrow it down. Okay, you have these abilities, you have these competencies, then this kind of pursuit should flow naturally from you, from the body of knowledge. But then there's the spiritual order of things. The fact that I can do something does not mean I should do it. Okay? There are so many things I'm qualified to do, I'm competent to do, but God has said, no way, that's not what I want you to do. So the fact that I feel gifted in a certain line doesn't mean that's what God wants me to do. You know, so these are things you interrogate now by counsel, like I said earlier on. You interrogate by counsel and by prayer. So as a believer in the marketplace, I wear my faith on my sleeves. I live, you know, several times the Bible says the just shall live by his faith. I live by my faith, not by my competencies, not by my learnings, not by my degrees, but by my faith. So those things are not bad in themselves, they are good. I mean, Paul, who told us not all things are profitable, he has a PhD. I mean, he's a doctor of doctors, a Pharisee of Pharisees, you know. But he says, what things were gained to me, I counted but loss for the excellency of Christ. So as a believer, I know it's okay for me to get those competencies. I mean, we believe that one of the reasons Paul was used by God that much was because of some of these exposures and competencies that he had, his capacity. But then he had to follow the leading of God. He had to be led into which city to go. There was a place he was stuck. He wanted to go into a city and those people would not allow him. He tried another one, those people said no. Then in the night he had a dream. And a man saying to him, come over to Macedonia and help us. And then he said, in the morning we gathered. So he used that revelation to arrive at a decision. So as a believer, you must be able to use revelation yourself to make decisions that pushes you into the place that God wants you to be. Essentially.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session with you.
It's a great privilege to be here.
It's been really, really explosive, very informative, very incisive, and I want to thank you sincerely for coming on Mentors Lounge. This is actually the last episode for the Mentors Lounge for December and for 2021. And it's a pleasure having, I call him Pastor Lad. Some people call him Reverend Lad, but his name is Niyi Ladokun. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on board. And I want to sign off on Mentors Lounge today. And I believe that since we started around August this year, you've had the opportunity of learning from so many of the people that we've brought on the Mentors Lounge. 2022 is around the corner. Watch out for our guests on the Mentors Lounge. It's Larry Lewis signing off again. Thank you and bye for now.